Hello, my friends. This is something I'm actually excited to do. So, Evaze released a new video, Is the Witness a Bad Villain? The Old Darkness Was Better, and I was just going to go watch this on my own time, but then I decided that, well, I actually contacted Evaze and I've asked him if he's okay with me reacting to his videos, and he said yeah. And this is a video I would actually really like to react to with you guys, so I want to watch this video with you. I want to give you my thoughts. As all of you who know me will know, I don't like the villain that is the Witness. I think it's a pretty basic and bare bones character. In my last stream, I actually went really in-depth into it. And yeah, I'm going to watch this with you. I'm going to give you my thoughts and hopefully you enjoy. Let's do it.
The Witness stands as a formidable force, but is it enough? Initially an obscure hint in the storyline, gradually emerges as a central antagonist, culminating in its dramatic reveal in the Witch Queen expansion. Yet, as the saga unfolds through Lightfall and beyond, questions arise about the true nature of this threat and its impact on the Destiny universe. Today we explore the complex portrayal of the Witness, contrasting its stoic exterior with its potential for raw, unbridled rage, and the anticipation for a climactic showdown that could redefine our understanding of this dark adversary.
So I think that's actually a really interesting point that he makes. It's the contrast between the, I guess, stoic, as he puts it, exterior and the kind of facade, and then the internal, I guess, rage that it can sometimes unleash. I guess like when it loses its cool or it kind of snaps. And that's what we saw in Lightfall with Callus, when Callus, I guess, said the wrong things too often and got whooped by it. But I think, in my opinion, that it would have been very helpful for the character if we saw more of that emotion in Lightfall. I remember in the Bungie Vidoc for Lightfall, we were told that we would see the Witness in a way that we had never seen it before. And in my opinion, I think the emotion is definitely one of those ways. I think that that's definitely something that counts towards that. Excuse me. But I think there wasn't enough of that. And sure, when we fight this thing in the final shape, it can maybe, throw a temper tantrum or cry a bit or whatever, but it's kind of the end at that point, You're getting this dump of information or emotion at the very end when it's going to die a few hours later, if even. So anyway, yeah, I think it's a really valid point from Evaze. There are two very distinct aspects to this character's personality and I guess how they're presented. The stoic, calm, menacing, ominous, always in control side of things, and then the unbridled rage, I think the scorn, the potentially belief that it's been betrayed or that life's been betrayed by the gardener, and just overall hatred. But yeah, anyway, that's my opinion on that.
The Witness a good villain? Let's discuss. Before we jump into this too much, I want to say this video is inspired by a video Paul Tassi did, as well as Destiny.
I had a feeling about that.
I'm not the first person to come up with this idea. They discuss this same topic. Is the Witness a good character, and is it a big enough villain for this entire saga? To understand this being, we must first head back to the beginning. Destiny 1 was a wild time, especially at launch. Much excitement around Bungie's new project after Halo. But as people got their hands on the game, they quickly had issues with the initial story. Was there even one? It felt like many things were cut, which they were. The game mentioned the Traveler as our savior, the Guardians who wield its power, and its ancient enemies.
So if you don't know, I'll just tell you this. The original story for Destiny 1 was scrapped very close to the launch of the game, and as a result of that, they basically had to make up a new story really quickly, and I say remake, like make a new story, not just reuse bits and pieces of the old one. The story, the script, the dialogue, pretty much all of that, like they had to make a lot of that up, right? And then the mission areas for the old campaign had to kind of get Frankensteined and mixed and matched and stuff like that. So that was basically what we got in vanilla Destiny 1.
enemy the darkness who would return someday. Beyond that, most players were confused.
But the traveler had an enemy. A darkness which had hunted it for eons across the black gulfs of space. Centuries after our golden age began, this darkness found us. And that was the end of everything.
Although this darkness was a mystery, our first hint at this powerful force, or rather those who wield it, actually first appeared before you even played the game on the install screen for Destiny 1. Take a look at this. Concept art for the pyramid ships. Bungie had this planned for years.
Here, the dead forests of Mars, exploring the non-traditional palette that I mentioned, going for that, and not what you would expect on Mars, which was a really cool thing to play with. And of course, a good game needs giant onyx pyramid ships. But
Now I'm going to jump in here and I'm going to tell you something that you might not know. This panel, or this conference or convention, whatever you want to call it, this was before the original story was cut. So everything that you're seeing here and the people talking about the game, this is all the original story. And this was before they knew what was going to happen, or before it was revealed to them.
That's a really cool image I love so much, but I'm not allowed to talk about those yet. Maybe someday down the road.
Maybe not just these pyramid ships either, but perhaps even a race that resided within them or controlled them. The infamous Race 5.
And I will say this, okay? I've said this before and it's gotten a lot of interest, but I will say it again. I have spoken to somebody who was involved with the original Destiny 1, okay? And I had the opportunity to specifically ask them about the pyramid ships, race, whatever you name it. And my question was along the lines of, was there anything actually made for the game that then got scrapped, or did this purely exist in concept form? And at the same time, I asked about anything that they could say about this faction's original story. And I don't want to say what I was told now, because I don't know how it would be, I don't know how it would affect people that told me. Let's put it like that, okay? But, yeah, no, interesting. Very interesting.
Concept as seen here. Some suggest this could have been the Taken, which makes sense because the Witness controls the Taken, or did before, but it also clearly represents a swirling head nature of a Witness-like character and its pyramid ships.
So in Halo, we had one main enemy. And to fill out a world as big as Destiny, we actually needed a lot more than that. We needed many. And we wanted to do that. We wanted this place to feel exciting with lots of different characters to fight. So we wanted them to feel harmonious as well, like puzzle pieces, to carve out different thematic buckets for them. So what we did was line them up and created a mood board like you see here.
For years, the darkness remained a mystery. Something Bungie did very well was keep the mystery interesting. Much like the Forerunners in their Halo saga, the darkness felt ancient and mysterious. Was it a race of alien beings? A force that can create dark guardians? We didn't know. The first big change for the Light and Dark saga came after the Red War. When the Traveler pushed back Gaul, it awoke some ancient ships deep in the system, the same one seen in that concept art.
And I really recommend, and I actually urge you, if you are interested in the story of the pyramid ships and the deeper story of Destiny 2, I really recommend that you watch my video about the Traveler's ancient enemy and the original story of the collapse, because that will make you see this cutscene in a completely different light, but I won't get into that now.
Shadowkeep took this a step further, when a mysterious character would begin using our ghost to speak with us.
Welcome. We've been waiting.
We found an ancient darkness artifact and a pyramid ship that was inside our moon since the first collapse. The overall message, this mysterious character and the ships behind it were now on their way. Vanilla Destiny 2, Shadowkeep, and then Beyond Light were building up to something. Beyond Light had us interact with the Dark Force once again as they spoke through Ghost, guiding us to a pyramid ship on Europa to acquire darkness powers for ourselves. On our journey, we learned more about these ships. Most of them seemed empty. At one point, maybe they were sentient, could move and think on their own, but Europa's was empty, same with the others that would now invade our system.
So I'm going to burst the bubble here, and I'm going to tell you that there's a really high chance, if not like it is what it is, that the build-up over the last 3 years for the pyramid stuff and the invasion or the second collapse, that was for Destiny 3. And Beyond Light and Shadowkeep were the sloppy leftovers of that scrapped game. Because they did begin working on Destiny 3, and then after Activision left, took the studios with them, and they knew that they couldn't make Destiny 3, it got scrapped. And they had to, I guess, figure out how to use whatever they had made so far. And that is, I think, and it makes sense when you look at, for example, the state and the scale and the comparison between Europa and future destinations. I think Europa was definitely intended to be a Destiny 3 destination. And even on stream, I went over concept art, and this concept art again shows things from Shadowkeep being on Europa, and the quality of the concept art making it seem like it was made for a game rather than just an expansion. But long story short, really, this wasn't all purely like intended by Bungie. I think that it was part of a greater plan for Destiny 3, and then when that plan fell apart and Destiny 3 fell apart, they just kind of began to mix and match the way I guess they did in Destiny 1.
That's another one. They all scan the same. Empty. Why did the darkness invite us here?
Something must control these ships. We've never seen a pilot.
In her journeys beyond the heliopause, Queen Mara Solve encountered the entity that commands the pyramids. She said its mind spoke louder than any other she has ever heard. A cacophony of thought. Perhaps those voices steer these ships. One of those voices spoke to you in the Black Garden as well.
Witch Queen was the big reveal. After defeating Savathun, she warns us about the big bad of the entire universe, the Witness, and we get a cutscene of it for the first time.
The game is over. Do not be afraid. Your pale heart holds the key. This time, there is no escape.
Just real quick, I want to say that so far I think Evaze has done a really good job of, I guess, setting up and explaining the background behind, how the Witness was revealed and how we as players saw the darkness from Destiny 1 to early Destiny 2 and so on. And no, I'm really looking forward to seeing how he, I guess, breaks down this character and gives his thoughts on if the character is good or not.
Spooky humanoid figure with multiple heads meshes into reality as it moves across its pyramid ship, shifting worlds and focusing in on its true goal, the Traveler. It seems ancient, calm, but you can get a sense of fright. Inside Savathun's throne world, we found another pyramid ship belonging to a disciple of the Witness. His name was Ralk. Our first encounter with these said disciples that follow this Witness character. At this point, we learn that there's tons of pyramid ships and only some of them house disciples like Ralk. After the Witness's reveal, the following seasons connected to the story a bit, but we didn't see the character again physically. Just heard stories about it and its goals in the lore, like wanting to find the relics of Nezarec and using characters like its disciples and even Aramis to achieve this for it. In Lightfall, the Witness appears again. It finally found the Traveler and arrives to learn how to enact this final shape. In the cutscenes, it showcases its extreme power, uses Callus, its newest disciple, to find the Veil, and opens a portal in the Traveler, then disappears. That's kind of where we are with the Witness currently. The whole plot of this year since then has been trying to figure out how to follow the Witness. Essentially, normally without the delay, 12 months of canon time where the Witness is absent both story-wise and for you the player. These seasons were of course supposed to lead straight into the final shape in February, so there wouldn't have been that big gap of time, but the expansion...
I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt like that, but I think something that was a really missed opportunity for Bungie, it really is a bit silly that the villain has what they want. They have everything they need, and it's taking them that long to achieve it. And I think something that would have really, at least for me, helped things would have been if they just added in a line or something that implied that the Witness was having trouble getting what it wanted, or there was something getting in its way, or something like that, that explained why we were getting so much like spare time to get inside the Traveler. The fact that there is nothing like that, at least as far as I'm aware, simply implies that it's just the way it is, right? The Witness just, oh, it's taking me like a year and a half to get what I want, but yeah, I don't know, I'm going as fast as I can. I don't know. I think having some kind of an explanation for that length of time would have helped a lot, but that's just from me.
Got delayed, so I'm not sure how they're going to do that story-wise. We have learned more about the Witness and its species since then, but the being itself has been absent. So is the Witness a bad villain or a good character? Let's get to some analysis. Of course, we don't have the final shape and things are not over yet for this saga, so keep that in mind. To me, currently, although the Witness seems scary and has been hinted at for many years, it doesn't feel like as big of a threat.
No, it doesn't.
It hasn't threatened the city or achieved damage on a massive scale.
No.
Maybe it's done this to other species, but to us it's flicked its wrist, killed a couple of Guardians, and then went on its way. Now story-wise, you can argue that's what the character wants. It doesn't need to because it's after this final shape. It doesn't care about these little ants of Guardians in its way. They mean nothing to it and its final goals. But it does feel a bit underwhelming currently. Think back to the Red War with the Red Legion terrorizing the city, even the Taken King, Oryx destroying the Awoken fleet. You saw the impact these villains had. The battle to come in the final shape will likely entirely take place inside the Traveler, so
really quickly, I do want to say that he's talking about the impact these characters have, or these villains, with the destruction they cause. So Oryx with the Awoken fleet, and Gaul with the, taking the city. And the whole point of the pyramids is that they were so far away, and they were taking a long time to get here, and yet the impact of what their presence here would mean was already established, because they had already had a moment like that. It was the first collapse. And the idea is that the first collapse was not successfully finished for some reason or another, that mainly being linked to the Traveler's sacrifice. And so when they come here, and if they actually arrive at our doorstep, they will finish what they started. That is the core premise of the pyramid ships. That's what they did in the past. They're coming here now. This is what they're going to do in the future. And the fact that they arrived and there was no payoff for that was an absolute tragedy, in my opinion.
Anyone on the outside may be blind to the matter at hand. Well, guess we just live our normal lives and hope the Guardian can save the universe. I hope there's some type of portrayal of how this affects humanity and all these races overall. Kind of like that cutscene we seen at the end of Season of the Seraph. All these different races and humanity were looking up at the Traveler because they thought it was leaving. Huge implications for their own lives. The Witness hasn't had a big confrontation with our Guardian at all, which also makes it feel like less of a threat. Sure, it's used Ghost and tricked us in Lightfall, but we need something scary to happen. Oryx taunted us. So did Gaul and Savathun. The witness barely acknowledges us. The character often displays a calm, stoic demeanor, rarely showing any perceptible emotion.
Sorry, real quick again. He talks about how the various villains have taunted us or directly communicated to us in a meaningful way, and the witness hasn't. And I just want to point out again that in Unveiling, the character who I believe is the Winnower does directly do that. As a matter of fact, that's the whole point of Unveiling. And not just is Unveiling about the Winnower explaining why they are right and the Gardener is wrong. The whole reason for that is because at the end, the Winnower is asking for us to join them. It would mean everything, according to the Winnower. Now you look at the Witness, and the Witness arrives and isn't interested in us at all. It talks about salvation, but salvation seems to be purely linked to whatever it gets inside of the Traveler. There's nothing to do with us joining the Witness, nothing about us becoming disciples, nothing. There's a really big disconnect between those previous villains, the villain in Unveiling, and the Witness now.
This facade of tranquility masks a deep underlying rage, suggesting a being that is controlled yet harbors intense feelings of this entire species. To be fair, the final shape may address all of this, but hopefully it isn't too late. We don't really need 5 missions exploring the Pale Heart and then maybe 1 against a Witness. To me, it needs to be focused entirely on the Witness as a villain and the dire threat it poses not just to the universe, but to you, the player.
That's actually really, really tricky. And I think Evaze makes a really good point here. So let me explain. I think a fear that I and many others have is that we will go into the Pale Heart and we'll spend like half or more of the campaign going down memory lane through these basically reskinned parts of previous destinations, right? Oh, I remember the Red War. Oh, I remember Forsaken. And then we'll get one mission at the end where we finally get to the end of the destination, this area here, and we'll, have some kind of basic confrontation with the Witness or its forces before the raid. And that's not, I think, what anybody truly wants. This is not what a solid and satisfying finale can afford to do. But now we actually have a crossroads. Because now we have 2 different paths that each of them actually need to happen, but only one can really happen with the narrative bandwidth that an expansion's main campaign can provide. So when I say narrative bandwidth, I mean there's only so many missions and only so much that you can put in each mission. The first path is what Evaze is talking about. The Witness is extremely vague. You have the basic premise, but that basic premise actually wouldn't be enough to make the character a satisfying villain and to provide a satisfying conclusion if the finale ended and that was all we had about the character. There needs to be more. There needs to be some kind of an information dump, some kind of a reveal, something. I think that spending the majority of the campaign learning more about the Witness and understanding its goals, understanding its past, potentially its race, that is really, really valuable, and I think that that's a very solid way of doing things. However, there's an issue with that, which is the second path. The second path is that we are inside the Traveler, and the Traveler is another character that we know very little about. This is an expansion that, at its core, is not just about saving the Traveler, but having the answers to our questions that we've had for nearly 10 years now. What is the Traveler truly? Where did it come from? Was it made? Who made it? Is the Gardener a separate character? Will we actually get to see her or interact with her? Will she talk to us? And the issue then is that you now have to choose. Assuming that we don't do the lazy, basic, go down memory lane route for the main story, either you spend the majority of the game learning about the Traveler and the Gardener and then saving her, or it's focused purely on the Witness and learning about the Witness and all of that. And I'm just going to say it. The unfortunate, brutal answer is that this is Bungie's fault because this could have been avoided. There was a time and a place to learn about the villain. it was Beyond Light. Let me put it like this. Shadowkeep is when the Witness was initially introduced. Beyond Light should have been when it was properly introduced. There's absolutely no reason why the cinematic showing the Witness's introduction couldn't have happened at the end of Beyond Light. There is absolutely no reason why the drawn art style cutscene of the Witness's race, why that couldn't have happened in Beyond Light. Beyond Light was the pyramid ship themed expansion at its core. That was the time for answers. And I said this way back when in my Beyond Light narrative review in like 2020 or 2021. And I said, the big issue with Beyond Light not actually moving anything forward is that those things still need explanations. They're now just going to get shoved into future expansions. And that is what happened with Witch Queen. You had a Hive expansion cut in half between Hive and Pyramid, where a good chunk of the story is about Savathun, but it's also her hyping up and referencing the Witness. Again, this is what I'm talking about. And now you're in a position where, yeah, you've got two paths. Do you explain the villain or do you explain the true nature of the Traveler? And I know that there are other ways that you can go around that. You can have the one be for the main campaign and then have a separate quest after the main story for the other, but do you really think that either of these two characters deserve that? These two characters, the seemingly main villain of the whole saga, and then the being or entity behind the light and the Traveler, they deserve their own moment in the campaign. So yeah, I think Evaze makes a really good point. Spending the majority of the campaign learning and focusing on the Witness would be a really good idea. The issue is that you do that, you sacrifice the other path, which is you're inside the Traveler. After 10 years, that is the time to learn about the Traveler. Now maybe they can mix the two. Maybe they can merge them together and kill two birds with one stone. That would be amazing. I'd be really impressed with that. But after Lightfall, I have my doubts. But yeah, I think that's something that is very interesting, and I hope that that gives you something to think about.
Maybe this true rage will burst out, the Witness's many personalities emerging to confront the Guardian. Maybe it even destroys Ghost. Even then, if the Witness is at the center and focal point, will it improve how we view this villain? It's hard to tell. Savathun's been around for years. We heard about her schemes, were frightened just by the thought of her, and one day we finally got to encounter her in Witch Queen. The big bad villain had that payoff when we defeated her. And although we brought her back last season, she's still a threat. The Witness appears for 2 expansions and is likely defeated for good in the final shape. This god figure that can crumble life forms with a flick of its finger is bland and stoic. That could be Bungie's plan, and its true intent will be revealed in the final shape, but those are some of my feelings. I wish we maybe could have encountered it more throughout this year's seasons, or witnessed what it's actually doing inside the Pale Heart. There's been a big gap since Lightfall and actually entering the portal. The idea of the darkness in the pyramids years ago sounded daunting. A massive darkness army, another race. When revealed though, most ships were empty, likely controlled by the minds of the Witness, and some contained disciples. But to you the player, what would have been more frightening, an entire race of darkness beings, or maybe what Bungie merged it into, this darkness race merged into the Witness, who has several disciples? This change could have been for many reasons. Maybe narrative teams have changed over the years and tried to piece things together. Maybe they rushed at the end of the saga and wanted to make more IPs like other games, so Lightfall and the final shape got thrown together. Now that might not be the right wording. I'm sure they worked hard on the story and wanted to be the best conclusion it can, but the big point...
Well, it's the best conclusion for them, right? And this isn't a dig at anybody. The reality is that this is a 10-year story. A 10-year story that has had multiple writers come and go. Okay? You're a writer, you're new to Bungie, you come on board. You're handed somebody's baby who doesn't work there anymore or is whatever. You weren't there for all that time. This is not your story. This is a torch being passed on. after a certain point, you're going to want to do your own thing. You're going to want to put your own spin on it. You're going to have your own interpretation of characters or events that differ from the original author or narrative designer. And so I think what we're seeing with the change in villains or factions or how characters act, it isn't necessarily that they're bad writers or bad people. It's just that their interpretations and their interests are different than those who originally made those things. It's a natural way of things, unfortunately. It is what it is, but I think that's really just the case. And I said this before, and I'll say it again. He talks about the quote-unquote old darkness, and that, in my opinion, was the Winnower. And at the end of the day, I do believe that the Witness's creation as a character was the baby of the people who didn't like that old story. It's as simple as that. But anyway, I think that's the truth about that statement there.
Point is that the Witness needs a grand payoff. Encounters with the Witness, explanations more in depth on why things are the way they are with its species, with the final shape and the fate of the universe.
And they can kind of pull that off. For the record, I'm not gonna sit here and act like it's all doom and gloom. Oryx was introduced and killed in the same expansion. They managed to make that work by having the echoes of Oryx constantly attack you throughout the game, or appear throughout the game. And that meant that even if you never played the raid and properly killed Oryx, you still encountered the character in a solid way and fought him. They can still do that with the Witness. Again, that just means though that the majority of the campaign is about the character.
But anyway, Guardians, that's all we have for today's video. Some thoughts on the Witness, its current character development, and how it could change within the final shape. If you'd like to see some more Destiny lore and mysteries just like this video, please be sure to subscribe to the channel. And thank you very much for watching, and I'll catch you all in the next video.
Okay. I know this went on for quite a while. I do apologize for that. Long story short, I think this was actually a really good video. I think that he did a really good job of setting the stage in terms of how we see the darkness and how it's been presented to us, and then the introduction of the Witness and what the Witness has done. Excuse me. And I think it comes down to this. Regardless of your opinion on the character, regardless of my opinion on the character, it comes down to the fact that the character was not involved enough. I think if the character was involved more in Lightfall, we would not be really having this conversation. I think that the Witness only appearing in a few cutscenes in Lightfall was a really big mistake. And I think that the Witness not really talking about anything of significance in Lightfall was a really, really big mistake. Because now what this means is that you fall into one of two groups of people. You're either A, the character is perfectly fine to you. They tick all of your boxes for the most part, and even if you don't learn anything more about them, you know, you're excited to see an end of the story, and it's all fine. Or you're in group B, which is like, okay, the character's kind of cool, or maybe you don't like the character at all, but you still, like, I want more. Like, I need my, as Evaze says, I need my payoff. I need my reveals, or I need my information. I need to get to know this character better. I want to actually meet this character. I'd like to meet the character before I try to kill it. And unfortunately, you're gonna meet the character right as you kill it. Because that is what Final Shape is. It's the very end. And I don't know exactly, I'd have to think about it a bit more, what all the aspects of this are in terms of like why it had to happen this way. But I think it's unfortunate. I think a lot of it comes down to Lightfall potentially not really being planned out as an expansion and being made rather quickly just to pad time for Final Shape. I don't know. But at the end of the day, I will say that in my opinion, the Witness is a bad villain. It's a bad character. And I think purely from an emotional standpoint and how it would have made us feel, the old story of the quote-unquote old darkness would have been better for sure. But anyway, that's my opinion on this video. I thought it was really great. If you If you like this video, I recommend that you subscribe to Evaze, like the video, and check out his other content. And yeah, with all that being said, I'll talk to you guys later. Take care, my friends. Bye-bye. And thank you to Detective Studios for being an Ascended member. Your support is greatly appreciated. Thank you.